And welcome everybody to the 2023 Australasian, Australian, the one down under Grand Prix. And what a crazy time we've been having down here in Australia. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Are you not entertained? As you could see on the thumbnail there. Oh, and Fabio's, there we go. Fabio has got into the spirit of it and is in fact upside down. Oh, not for long though. Thank fuck for that, because that would have really confused me. But there you go. Well, what can we say? He is, of course, as always, the Italian expert. Welcome, Fabio.
Hey, how you doing? Fantastic Sunday. Motorcycles were pretty good races. So yeah, in Argentina, of course, but yeah, I don't know of any other races which has been held this weekend. So yeah,
No.
yeah. There's always a motorcycle. There is always a motorcycle race I can cling on. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And this year I'm gonna need all of them. Superbike, MotoGP, I'm gonna need all of them.
Okay, that's fine. Everybody's in it. Okay. Okay, thank you. And also, of course, welcome to the not an expert, Lucky7Wolfin. Welcome, Lucky.
Oh, we're back. Are we back?
Yeah, we're back. We're live. Actually,
Yeah, we're
I don't
live.
want to wake you up, but we're live.
Something weird. I don't know what happened there. It was kind of weird. Fabio turned into the spinning wheel of death for some reason, and everything went quiet.
Oh shit! You all right? You're back with us now. You're back with us now.
Yeah, I think so.
Excellent. I won't make any more jokes then. That's fine. Okay, jolly good. Okay, right. So, as I say, we were at the 2023 Albert Park Formula One Grand Prix for this weekend. There was a lot going on, and I'm going to actually rapidly get through it because most of it was fairly boring, but the exciting parts were very exciting. It was really a tale of two cities, I would say, or two halves, I should say. A game of two halves. Let's get that right.
Three halves, surely.
Three halves, at least. Actually, thank you. Yes, it was a game indeed of three halves, because there were two red flags, which we shall get to. Firstly, though, we had qualifying, and qualifying was a little unusual because the status quo. I don't mean the band in this case. Was what? No, Fabio. I know you're going to get up and start rocking out because that's the kind of thing we do.
Yeah.
Sweet Caroline.
I mean,
No,
you can't say Sweet Caroline without
Fabio,
That was real diamond you did there.
just no. Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
I mean, it just goes with the thing. It's like when I say, if I say da 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 da
That.
yeah, see, I mean, you can.
There we go. Okay. Sweet Caroline. That's so funny. Okay, right. That's great. We may be repeating jokes from a few years ago in our podcast as well, by the way. Yeah, I think we are. Okay, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
If they're funny, they're funny. That's the thing about humor. Okay, but no, it was the status quo, by which I meant it was Red Bull, Mercedes, and then Ferrari with an Alonso peeking his way in there, just squeezing his way in. And that was unusual. So basically, qualifying ended Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, George Russell, who's really got the upper hand over Lewis this season so far, Lewis Hamilton, then Alonso, and then Sainz. Leclerc a little further back, a couple of places back than that, with Stroll getting in between the two Ferraris. Which, kind of boded well for the race. Unfortunately, too much happened. Albert Park, it's a great circuit, but this year they decided to have, and I'm going to count them for you now, 1, 2, 3, 4 guess what? DRS zones this year. We had 4 DRS zones in Albert Park, which, like, if that isn't going to give the advantage to Red Bull even more, I don't know what would. But hopefully the FIA is going to just clamp down on the number of DRS zones, because they seem to be multiplying. Like, I don't know what's going on exactly. It was good for the rest of the field, obviously, pretty reliable. One of the major things about qualifying, of course, was that Sergio Perez went off in the first corner of the first qualifying session, and that put him at the back. And of course, we were to be entertained by his fight through the pack, which was amazing in Russell Crowe land. So that just explains the thumbnail for everybody. And really, basically, most people he passed, I've got to say, probably had an accident. So I'm just saying it was like a slaughter as he weaved his way through the field. But nonetheless, he did get trapped behind a DRS zone. And obviously, DRS zones were a pretty common thing up and down the field. And if you get caught behind a DRS zone in his car, a train in his car, then something serious is going on with the DRS. It obviously needs to be looked at quickly for this year. Otherwise, it's going to spoil a lot of races. Anyway, we got to Sunday. We got to the 5 red lights. And eventually, we got to the 5 red lights. Let me just do this. We got to the 5 red lights. And indeed, let me just, sorry, I'm got a little bit there because, like, I'm not used to having everything back again. There we go, Fabio and Funk. I like the thing. Yeah. So anyway, cars off the line. George Russell got a spinner off the line. He really got a flyer. He managed to get down the inside of Max Verstappen into corner 1, and that was fantastic. Max, unusually being extremely cautious, knowing that he had the car to win the race. He very cautious indeed. So cautious, in fact, that by turn 3, he'd allowed Lewis down the inside as well. Actually, Lewis went round the outside. No, down the inside, I beg your pardon. And 3 wide with Leclerc into turn 3, and Leclerc coming off worst. This year we've got these silly rules, as again we've had for the last few years, which is if a car goes down the outside, he's to be given room. This, of course, is against racing etiquette, really, which has been standard, which is it's the car on the inside that has right of way. So I don't blame Leclerc for necessarily getting down the outside, but I think it was poor driving, in my opinion. That he did, in fact, try to overtake or stay alongside Max. He should have just given the place up, tucked in behind Max, and it probably would have had 3rd place, but in the end. But no, he didn't. He decided to give it a go around the outside. And, again, I have no idea why, but there we go. He tried. It wasn't Max he was alongside, I beg your pardon, was it? It was Stroll, I think. It was Stroll that he came to go. I think he was round the outside of Stroll. And again, Stroll, I understand why he was there, because he had right of way. He was slightly ahead. But we are talking about Stroll, who is not the most experienced driver. And, of course, is no Fernando Alonso. So, really, I think he put himself at risk there and went off into the gravel, never to be seen again. Unfortunate. Sainz got away to a flyer, managed to take up 3rd place ahead of Alonso. Not to last, he ran into problems later as well. They both, George just got off to a flyer, even though Verstappen was alongside him. Verstappen backed out, as I say, unusual for Verstappen. And I think that's really what caused the problems back in the track. Then racing on, it was very much the status quo with Russell, with George Russell, Hamilton, and then Verstappen. When Alex Albon lost the rear end going into turn 7, I think, and managed to spin into the gravel, lost drive completely after that. I think he was a bit shaken up by the crash. He hit the wall quite hard. Don't really know why, but I don't know. Some of the cars were just very skitty on this Albert Park circuit. Maybe because it was a road circuit, maybe because the grip levels weren't there. Certainly from the beginning. And in general, cars were having problems with the tyre warm-up all weekend. Even qualifying, they were doing lap after lap after lap on the same tyre. So Pirelli, I think, getting ready for next year when they're allegedly taking out the blanket warmers, although after tonight's experience, maybe they will be re-looking at that. Okay, Alex Albon out. George Russell then called into the pits on a strategy call when the safety car out. Unfortunately, after a couple of laps, that was then to turn into a red flag with all the debris on the circuit, and this absolutely knackered George's race. And that's where the first kind of, what should we say? That's where the first kind of a twist came in the race, because of course up till then, if we just had it that way, it would have been a pretty exciting race between Lewis holding, well, there's no way Lewis was going to hold back Verstappen, but between Lewis and George would have been quite an exciting race, I feel, with George on an alternative strategy to Lewis. And I think potentially George might have got the better of him, and certainly it would have been exciting with George and Alonso. But we were that was taken away from us because, of course, on lap 8 the red flag came out. The first red flag came out. Everybody cruised round, and of course, several laps later, or by lap 10, of course, when they were ready to restart the race, the circuit had been cleared up. There was a bit of a kerfuffle at the back as Lewis slowed the pace down, trying to take advantage of the fact that his tyres, his car seemed to do better on colder tyres compared to the Red Bull, and in fact that was how it was to be. Lewis got away to a blinder in front, and followed by Verstappen, and then Alonso, and then a cheeky, and I say very cheeky, Gasly in 4th place. Gasly again had another great race, drove extremely well, and was very unlucky in the end. But then there's more to say about that, which we'll get to. It wasn't long before Verstappen found his way past Hamilton quite easily down the straights. Again, Red Bull, a rocket ship with the DRS open, and we'll talk about that as well, because that is clearly they have a huge advantage. Then, as I say, Gasly, then Sainz, doing well. Unfortunately, lap 18, Russell had an engine Mercedes malfunction, and dropped out of the race. Perez, in the meantime, cutting through the field. Lap 22, he was already past one of the McLarens. Lap 25, he was well up to 9th place and in the points. Then at the same time, Gasly and Sainz Sainz going dummying, a superb overtake by Sainz, by the way, dummied Gasly down in turn 3, and managed to get past. So Sainz then into 4th place, and absolutely is a fantastic overtake, probably the best of the race. Max made a mistake, unbelievably, saying that he was having that problem again, really struggling with his front end. I think they'd compromised the setup for Albert Park, and it made it not to Max's liking, which leads me to a conspiracy point about what was the problem with Perez's car. Yeah, was there some issue put into Perez's car? I don't know. Maybe. Hang on. Whoa. I'm just saying. I don't know if you noticed this, but I was keeping an eye on the sky over Albert Park, and a couple of times I thought I saw aliens.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I thought I saw aliens. And then I don't know if you know this, but Albert Park is flat. Don't know if you know that, but anyway, there we go.
I'm cool with whatever you say because you haven't mentioned tires so
No,
far.
but
So I mean, if you have another conspiracy theory which doesn't involve tires, I'm all ears. Yeah, go ahead. Carry on.
Okay, that's correct. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. Perez having a bit of an issue. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The Hasses and, or at least Norris, had a great race as well. Very, very consistent. He ended up in the points, which is the first points for McLaren this year. Did really well. And then Hulkenberg, I think it was, had Magnussen had a problem, which caused the red flag on lap 55. He came round into turn into turn 2, and I don't know how, but he managed to get off the road and hit his tyre. Very unusual and very unusual. I have seen accidents there before, but not quite so. Not quite like that. Again, no idea why. It looked like there may have been a car part failure. He says not, but I just don't understand it. He just lost grip, presumably went slightly wide on some dirty part of the track and hit his tire into the wall. The tire exploded the rim into the concrete, and he slid down the road. That brought out the red flag for the second time, and instead of where we've come to expect, the FIA making a sensible decision, the FIA decided, instead of just going around behind a safety car to the finish of the race, they decided they wanted to race to the end, even though there was going to be carnage. Again, these tyres.
Fuck off!
They're just not. They're just not heating up.
Now you're pushing it. Yeah, just because they reminded you, you're pushing it.
I said it before. Fabio. I'm just saying. Hello, Gio. By the way, just a quick hello. Right. I'm just saying the tires, because they're not heating up, and even Max said they were stone cold on the last lap, and that it was going to be suicide with that many drivers trying to take advantage with tires that cold. And in fact, that is what happened. I'm going to try to explain to you exactly how many people drove into the first corner and didn't come out, but it's going to be difficult. So the first thing was Sainz was down the inside. Excuse me. Sainz was down the inside of Alonso, causing Alonso to spin out of the race. In the meantime, Gasly went off track, braked himself, locked his brakes, as well as Perez, as well as a few other people. This just caused absolute carnage. Big crash coming together. Gasly went off the track slightly, trying to avoid the crash up ahead of him. This brought him together with his teammate Ocon, who tried to go around the outside into turn 2. They crashed out, totally destroyed their cars. And then into turn 3, Alonso locked up, giving Sainz the place in third place. And also one of the Hasses, Hulkenberg, went off the track. This let the Tsunoda up to 5th, Norris 6th, Piastri 7th, and the two AlphaTauris 8th, 9th, and Perez in 10th, obviously, because he'd already gone off. So it was a shambles, absolute shambles. And as quick as you like, absolutely as quick as you like, Alonso, still inside the car, having just spun and had close contact with his mate, said, they should stop hang on a minute, we haven't been through the first thing. If they stop the race, they've stopped the race. We haven't been through the first sector. That lot doesn't count. Put me back in my place. And he was right. That was exactly what happened. The FIA shifted everybody back round to the original starting positions after the second restart, and basically then ended it under yellow, a safety car. And that was the Australian Grand Prix. Difficult to tell you exactly why it all happened that way, but I'm guessing that after the carnage of the second restart, it wasn't fair to do much else. The only thing which was unfair, of course, in my opinion, was Science coming together with Alonso. Yes, it was Science's fault, no doubt about it. He was behind with these new rules. The car on the outside is supposed to be given room. However, this is a restart, and as such, under the fact that tyres are cold, etc., it's extremely difficult to keep the cars in place. And I thought myself a particularly harsh penalty of 5 seconds was applied, which under these restart conditions and safety car the finishing lap didn't give Sainz a chance to at least stay in the points, and he ended up way back. This is ridiculous. The whole thing was ridiculous. The red flag to start with was ridiculous. It caused untold amounts of problems, as I say, going in to get all the cars to start again. Many people dropped out of the race, or at least couldn't restart, namely the two pink cars. And that was completely unfair. Gasly, who had driven a great race, was penalised. Ocon, I don't know what he was doing, putting his wheels on the outside of Ocon and really of Gasly, other than obviously trying to overtake into turn 3. So again, none of that would have happened if they'd made the sensible decision, as they would have done in the past, of rolling around behind a safety car and just finishing the race that way. As it happens, they did end under a safety car because they couldn't get around the first lap. And what happened? The Australian crowd cheered them all the way around, having thoroughly enjoyed a race back at Albert Park. And that, of course, led to the final classifications, which were Max Verstappen, an easy win, great race. Really great race for him, a very mature race as well. Stayed out of trouble in every single restart, stayed out of trouble at the beginning, and really used his car advantage to win the race. 25 points to him. Lewis Hamilton in second place. He was thrilled with the second place. They hadn't changed the car at all, so Mercedes literally moved up just because of the track conditions and the fact that they presumably work their tyres very hard, so it's easier for them to get heat into the tyres. Alonso in third place. Again, consistency as we expect from Alonso. Lance Stroll, fourth place. Bit lucky to be there, but nonetheless bringing home his teammate. Sergio Perez, fifth place. From the back, he became got driver of the day. Driver of the day, I don't know for what exactly. He stayed most of the time behind in a DRS train, but there you go. What can you say? Yeah. They're a strange crowd, these people that watch Formula One these days. And Lando Norris, a great drive to sixth place. Hulkenberg, consistent, as you'd expect. Piastri, the home boy on his home turf, first race, 4 points. Well done to Piastri. Hopefully that'll give him a good boost for future races. Charles Jean came home in ninth place in the AlphaTauri, and Yuki came home in the AlphaTauri. Charles was in the Alfa Romeo, so he was the Alpha, and Tsunoda was the AlphaTauri, who was the Beta Alpha. So just to put that in, clarifying, I don't want anyone to be confused by that.
Yeah, nobody's confused right now. It's just.
Thank you so much. And obviously, fastest lap goes to Sergio Perez. All the rest are just also ran and finishers, but they did very well. So that's the top 10. That is my Australian review for 2023. The Formula One World Championship is finished, and next time, hopefully, will be a decent circuit. I'm getting a little bored of Albert Park myself, but there we go. Thank you. That's that. I'm going to pass it over to the Italian expert.
So I would
Fabio,
say thank God for Argentina, which they managed to set up a really decent circuit, where proper men with balls race on motorcycles. But talking
Men
about
have
F1,
balls. Is that your? That's it. Newsflash: men have balls. Okay.
yeah, with
That's what
proper
you're saying.
balls, like not
proper balls.
Yeah. Okay.
So the F1, starting from the qualifying, I was really excited up until the very end, because it seemed to be everybody up to the sixth place was in a 0.2 of a second, and then Verstappen decided to say, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna drive, and he gave half a second to everybody. So it was just like, oh fuck, it's gonna be another one of those days. So and it was. Besides, the very initial, the very first start, because there were four of them, as you mentioned. But the very first start, where Verstappen decided, you know what, I'm not going to crash into anybody, not like Leclerc, as you said, which at least he made a big mistake, but at least he was sensible enough to do the mistake on the outside, so he was the only one damaged, not like Sainz at the end of it, which decided to do another very stupid thing in the inside, damaging both him and and Alonso. But anyway, I mean, besides the first corner where Verstappen decided, yeah, I'm gonna leave those guys go, I'm gonna catch them up. I got half a seconds on them. Everything else was pretty much standard. I agree with you about Perez. I have no fucking idea that Perez was actually racing that race up until the very end where he popped up. But the thing is that that race, it doesn't really matter if it was exciting, boring, or not. They might have decided with the deck of card at the end of it, and and have the drivers pick a card. Whoever picks the highest card gets the position, because it was just
Absolutely.
that kind of thing. I mean, I agree with you that Sainz was wrong at the restart. Still, I mean, 5 seconds, and there is one lap under the safety car. I don't know why he actually decided to do that last lap. I mean, I would have get out the car and say, you know what, fuck it, I'm not gonna even bother doing that.
Yeah. Well,
but
I mean, they've got to finish in order to get classification. So
and he got
otherwise,
12th, so he got no points anyway. So
yeah, they're ridiculous. And also, just to say this, there was precedent for that exact situation from a few years back, maybe 5 years ago or so.
Oh, I mean, that's the funny thing about the precedents, because they said, oh, they have to do that because of the precedent in Abu Dhabi, I think it was. So I mean, everybody
That's bullshit.
I know. I mean, but that shows that everybody gets their own poison and run with it, and they will find a good excuse, because that's what F1 is. But regardless, to a couple of quick points before getting to the crux of the matter. I'm really glad for Piastri, mostly because it was a survival race, but he managed to get points, so good for him. I was not surprised by the Ocon Gasly thing. I mean, Ocon has a weird record with teammates. So it was just a moment, it was just a matter of time before he ran into his own teammate for, stupid reasons. So yeah, there was that. And it was actually a very stupid reason. I mean, Ocon, got a little bit of a kerfuffle, but, Gasly got a little bit of a kerfuffle, but Ocon was in a position where, I mean, he knew there was no space. So, I mean, lift up, because, there is not enough room for two cars there. And yeah, he decided that there was, and there wasn't. So yeah, I mean, other than that, again, the funny thing is that everybody, I mean, I've read pointing the finger about the fact, they're trying to make the show more exciting with restarting the race and stuff like that. I'm not really buying into that stuff, mostly because if there is somebody which wants the show to be actually a show, it's not the FIA, it's Liberty Media. But Liberty Media has no words in how the race is conducted. So there is this weird short circuit between. It seemed to be like both the FIA and Liberty Media, they're trying to show up who can set up the best show. But the thing is that the FIA is not supposed to do that. Liberty Media is supposed. So it's really it was really super confusing. I have no idea what happened. Deciding to restart the race with the position that they got at the lap before, because nobody got before the first timing sector. I mean, it was a mess. It was a total mess.
And they could have just waited. They could have waited to put the red flag out if they were going to put a red flag out, and just ended the race there.
That's another thing. Thank you for reminding me. So during the race, you usually have you have 5 options, right? So you got the yellow flag, you got the double yellow flag, the virtual safety car, the safety car, and the red flag. Those are the 5 options you have when something happens on the circuit. Now, I think we all agree that the virtual safety car is shit and they should not use it, which was good. But the safety car, it's something which it is actually really useful. And I have no idea, really no idea, why they did not use the safety car when Albon, got out with the Williams, and they had to clean, the track from the pebbles. They could have used the safety car. It would have taken about 2 minutes between, all the cars going by. Plenty of time, to sweep, in 2 or 3 laps, and everything would have been fine. No, they went for the red flag, which again, it makes no sense in my mind. The barriers were okay. The car was out of there. The only thing they had to do was to clean the track, and you put a red flag. So that was really, really stupid. And I think that the only reason was because, when you have a restart, it's more spectacular.
Yeah,
which again, it's super stupid. The only thing I got to say is that I was waiting for somebody to mention Masi, because Masi was actually at the track.
Masi was there, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if the guy has some kind of aura which permeates the other people and makes all of them stupid. I don't think that's the case, right? But that's an explanation.
Yeah, that's good. Now you're talking about my conspiracy with Perez, but now you've got Masi.
Oh man, I'm way ahead of you.
Absolutely.
But again, I think that the real truth is something that we've been saying for years, is the fact that they should have, like a steady stable of stewards, all the tracks, somebody which is fucking professional, the same way that they should have, stewards on the track, dealing with, with fire extinguisher and all that shit. And it's always, I mean, it's beyond me how a sport which moves so much money, they can get to those 2 simple points, having a professional staff of people on the track and having a professional staff of people, stewarding the race. I mean, I think that would be, like 101, and they don't.
Yeah.
So we have super professional teams with people which is paid a lot of money, drivers which are, the fastest drivers on earth, on the fastest cars on earth, and then managed by fucking idiots. And it's mind-boggling, really. It's beyond me.
I mean, it shows that we were very spoiled with Charlie Whiting as well, being so consistent over all those years. And so now
Charlie Whiting was an idiot at the beginning of his career. He made some really poor choices, and he only got good because at the end of it, he had enough experience to realize, oh yeah, I mean that is sensible, you know.
Yeah.
But that wasn't. But the thing is that wasn't by design. It was by accident because the guy wasn't dead, you know. So he kept keeping his old job.
Yeah,
So,
well, nobody else had the experience to take his job either,
so,
right? And
yeah,
that's one of the issues with, firstly, having Marzi in, who somewhat trained under him a little bit, and then secondly, then making this big decision in Abu Dhabi, and the fallout from the teams wanting, the decision to be as it was under Whiting, but Mazzy making his own decision. And again, he made that decision under duress, right? So it's not like it was the decision he wanted to make anyway. Right. If they just let him say, look, I fucked up.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how that goes. I'm really sorry about it.
Yeah.
Let's carry on. Exactly like, Charlie Whiting, I think it was like who was it? Was it the Prost Senna where he put Senna? He said, Senna, you can race in the race again. And then the FIA wanted Prost to win. So they then banned Senna under some spurious kind of, whatever it was. Somebody pushed your car or something like that.
No, you're right. You're right. And the funny thing is that all those teams, they have nothing to blame but themselves, because that was the right, decision. Okay, the guy's not too much experience, but he's the one which is going to carry on, the torch, for years. We got to give him some time. Everything blew up in his face, and they all demanded for his head on a pike, and those are the results. So good job.
The decision itself was okay. It's just that he implemented it incorrectly, which is the weird thing about it.
And regardless, it was a decision. The fact that we now know who took that decision, it's way better than what we have experiencing last year and this year, where we have some really stupid decisions and we don't even know who the fuck got them.
Yeah, there you go. So coming back to that first red flag, which is the one we're really talking about here. The second one, there was a lot of debris, a lot of cars crashed, etc. We can give that a red flag. Yeah, but nonetheless, it could have been dealt with in a different way. And I just want to say this about it quickly, which is to say that that ruined us of a good race, that first red flag, because George had pitted, right, and several other people had pitted, banking on the fact that there was a safety car out. And
they would have got I think.
Yeah, and they would have got a huge bonus in that way, right? And it would have made the race really interesting at the front. But that all taken away.
And if you saw the accident, nobody in his right fucking mind would have guessed there was a red flag, hanging on over there.
Well, no, as you said, you said the salient thing first, which was the barriers were okay. If the barriers are damaged, there is an argument, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're going to be putting bodies onto the track, right? And therefore, maybe we don't want the cars going past under virtual safety car even.
Yeah.
Maybe. All right. It's a dry day. It's not like it was in Japan.
Or maybe you need to put some heavy trucks on the car, So I can see that. There is a point. Yeah.
So maybe. But again, under this circumstance, we've got to trust the drivers to be able to do that. And again, one of the things that they're not utilizing now, and I think they should, is driving through the pits. Right, safety cars can drive the whole train through the pits, right, and that is a lot longer lap time, and gives marshals, etc., a lot more time on track to actually do the jobs and clean the race. Again, something that wasn't utilized in Abu Dhabi, which could have been,
especially this year. And you mentioned that on passing with the new rules about the tire warmers. The argument that the tire, they're getting colder, so it is more dangerous, doesn't even apply, because the tire warmers are, I think, 70 degrees or 80 degrees.
70,
really low. So even that argument cannot be made. So yeah, it's more to your point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what they're going to do with the tire warmers, by the way, and I'll get to, we must get to Lucky. What they're going to do with the tire warmers, of course, is to just restrict the number of hours that they can be used for, not the temperature, and that's going to be the solution. Because at the moment they're putting them through like a 3-hour heat cycle before they even get on the track.
Yeah.
So that really cures them and gets them ready for racing. And I think that's one of the issues really, is the length of time that they have these tire warmers working for before
but you
they
see,
even put them on the car. It's not like they just heat them to 70 and away you go. They literally bake them and recook them for 3 hours.
And the results of the fact that, because of the fact that everybody's got the same tires, that's not really, something which is so important. I mean, I would understand if you have, Pirelli and Bridgestone, maybe, so they react differently. So that might be an issue. But, they're all the same tires. Let's assume for, that, for example, that, having the tires heated at 70 degrees for that cycle, they make the tires shit for everybody in the first 3 laps. I mean, who the fuck cares? Everybody's got shitty tires, right? So it's
well, I mean, no, obviously, because there's
but I mean, it's something that you factor in when you in the first lap of your race, and everybody has got to factor in that thing. The material is the same for everybody, so it's not that big. I don't see that big of an issue.
Yeah, agreed. If there was consistency season to season, then they could design their cars for that, right? But there isn't. Okay, that's one of the things. There is no consistency. We don't know what's happening next year with the tire warmers.
Right.
You can't design the cars.
But again,
to wear the tires more or heat the tires up quicker, because there's going to be no tire warmers, right? This is the issue.
No, but I mean, I understand, and I think we both agreeing from different angle, but with both agreeing, meaning that so that's the material you got to work with. So you got to build your car around that material. It's the same for everybody. So that thing it's off the window, right?
Yeah.
And the way that they react is the same for everybody. I mean, it's just something that you got to factor in. The same thing that you factor in at the beginning of the race, where you got more fuel and they're more heavy, so you got to act accordingly. I mean, that's gravity, that's mass. You can't have, a lighter fuel. That's something you got to deal with it. So
as we all know, as you say, it's mussy, and that always fucks things up in Formula One. Right. Also, just to quickly mention then, before we pass it over to our non-expert and Lucky7Wolfin, the special guest, Perez said some awful things about his team. He was very unhappy after the last race. And this race, he couldn't even turn his car into a corner without locking up with the inside wheel. Very fucking strange. That's all I'm saying.
He actually had a point when he said something about the sun, being in their face. And as from a driver point of view, I actually understand that. I saw some, if you saw the visual, especially from the helmet cam and stuff like that, the sun was really low, especially on the front straight. So he has a point. But I mean, that's a point. He actually said, to be fair to Perez, he said, it was something which was dangerous for everybody. And I mean, that was a very good point.
Of course, but he is from Mexico, by the way.
Yeah, he is from Mexico.
Another circuit that they used to race late at when the sun was going down.
And I still, every time you mention Paris, I can't get out of my head, the face that he made last race when he told him, "Oh, you were, ahead in the championship for a brief moment," and then Verstappen made a quick, and he didn't know, but it was a what? So that's
absolutely. But I'm just saying, starts challenging Verstappen. Verstappen throws his toys out the pram. Next race, he can't even qualify. Or at least he has a car which he was never going to get near to the front with during qualification. So even if he stayed on the track, but anyway, I'm just saying, let's look out for that one this year. Okay, thank you so much, Fabio. That was fantastic. contribution as always. I just want to now pass it over to Lucky7Wolfin. Let me just change your banner before we do. Special guest Lucky7Wolfin. How are you today? How was the race? How did you find it? And what were your highlights?
Well, we'll talk about the Perez qualifying incident. It looked like the kind of mistake you'd make when you're sending a text to your girlfriend and don't realize the corner's coming up. That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
We've all been there. We've been there.
Yeah. Stupid fucking bitch.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. It just he was concentrating on something completely different, and it wasn't that corner.
It was a very strange strange crash. And it was as soon as he turned the wheels, the inside wheel went light, and then he lost all traction.
Yeah,
it seemed all retardation in terms of the braking. And it wasn't the first time that happened in P3, of course. Quite a few times he was complaining about the car in Q3 doing exactly the same thing. Funny, by the time of the race, they'd got it fixed. That's all. Anyway.
Well, yeah, it didn't seem to affect the race pace much, did it, compared with other cars?
No.
But it was a strange race. Going back to what you were saying with the red flags, I think the tunnel-like circuits, such as Albert Park, where it's narrow, you've got no runoff areas, you're kind of forced to put safety cars out or red flag the race, because when Albon went off, the cars that were coming behind him nearly plowed into him. There was a couple of cars that were very close. And that's because they're in a tunnel track and nobody can see what's coming up after the corner they're on.
Yeah, that particular corner. Yeah.
And there was also a recovery vehicle out as well on the outside of that corner picking up Albon's car. So I guess they're playing it safe these days. I don't know.
Yeah.
However, the race itself, Verstappen just blitzed them, didn't he? The way he went around Hamilton on the outside of the long left-hand corner, just like two different Formula cars. You know, he was just visibly faster. But he made a mess of it towards the end there. He went wide on one of the left-hand corners as well.
Yeah, he did.
So it could have been disastrous for him. And that would have left Lewis as the winner. But anyway, lap one, Lance Stroll couldn't find his teammate, so he just went for Leclerc instead, took him out. Albon's crash brought the red flag. There was also a spell in the slowing down lap after the red flag where a lot of the cars basically just stopped on track. And the cars behind still coming at full tilt were nearly going into the back of them. And
same corner. Same corner.
It was the same corner, yeah. And Tsunoda, actually, he ended up taking to the grass and across the gravel to avoid hitting other cars. So something's not right there. Is that a driver fault or what?
Well, no, it's done by the rules. Lewis was correct in that he is the pace car on those restart laps. I noticed that Verstappen started whinging straight away because of his tyres, but Lewis obviously wanted to slow it down in order to keep everybody's tyres cold, because the Mercedes works the tyres a little harder. So it's to his advantage, but that is within the rules. Afterwards, the FIA said that they will need to look at that situation and probably do something about it, because they also felt it was dangerous.
Yeah.
But, I just think, we're dealing with the best drivers in the world, for fuck's sake. Let's get on with it. I don't want to hear this kind of like, oh, it's a little bit. Like, so what? You know what I mean? Drive slower then. Know what's going on around you.
I think this is part of this thing I was talking about with these tunnel circuits where they're basically just got a wall on either side. I mean, remember Verstappen, was it last year or the year before that Hamilton and him had coming together at the first corner at Silverstone. He went off in a horrendous accident. The race wasn't affected at all because he was miles away from the track. He wasn't confined in these tunnel tracks like the last 3 races we've had.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. It's the nature of the track.
I completely agree. But then the drivers behind should know that, and then not steam into a blind corner.
Well,
I mean, so listen to me.
I'm wondering, is it drivers or is it something else?
Well, Lucky, I mean, the thing is that either those guys are the best drivers in the world or they aren't, So if they can take an apex in Monza at 300 kilometers an hour, they can slow down the car and avoid the pebbles on the road.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways, So you're good at driving at 350 kilometers an hour, but you're shit at driving 120. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Again, they're very focused on what they are doing within their car, right? And some of these drivers are very good at being Formula One drivers. A great example in this case is Alonso, who after the last restart, after the last reflag, said, "Oh yeah, but the cars haven't been. The lead car hasn't even been through the first sector yet, so we should all go back like Silverstone."
Mm-hmm.
Right now, that's thinking about everything that's going on in the race. He knows where he knows where Verstappen is, right? And he knows where the people behind are. He's aware of what's going on the track around him, right? But these drivers, Tsunoda being one of them, I have to say, who's recently shown himself up to be probably not a Formula One driver, he may be fast enough or getting fast enough now. He's had some experience, but he's just not experienced enough in Formula One racing. It was at fault. He literally drove full speed through a corner because everybody else in front was doing that. Right? Well, there you go. That's your answer, right? It's inexperienced Formula One drivers that caused that pile up. And Lewis did it at a place which was very inconvenient for the drivers behind. But hello, we're playing Formula One here. We're not playing kiddies go karting down the oval at the beach. You know what I mean? So, just that's my 2 pence. Sorry, go ahead, Lucky.
No, well, I'm really not sure. It's difficult. Again, I think the nature of the track makes things difficult for drivers who, like you say, are concentrating on what they're doing and not worrying about anything else. But surely, I mean, they've all got team radios. They knew the race was getting red flagged. Weren't the teams on the radio saying, "Slow down, red flag, slow down, red flag"? I mean, it's a hard one, I think. But obviously, the driver, the fastest driver was obviously Max Verstappen. A well-deserved win, I would say. Lewis did well. Poor George Russell was very unlucky. They just got him in at precisely the wrong time. Albon, he looked like he was going to put up a good show this weekend. Didn't quite work for him, unfortunately, in the race itself. Perez started in the pit lane, managed to get himself up to 5th. And I think you said he got driver of the day, did he?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Okay. So he got driver of the day, and that was about it. The 2 Alpines managed to take each other out, which was a bit of a shame. My guy, Logan Sargent, started 18th, qualified 18th, finished in 16th, classified as 16th at the finish. And what's interesting about this race is there was actually 8 non-finishers, 8 DNFs in the classified results.
Yeah.
Which is nearly half the field.
Indeed. It was a shit show.
Yeah, and again, is this because of the nature of the track?
No, No, I mean, I think qualifying showed us that because they were doing multiple runs on the tyre, that the tyre was getting nowhere near its peak performance. Right. And there we go. So that's it. Everybody knew going into that race that it was a problem warming tyres up, and so they should have been aware of it. Again, either these guys are the best, as Fabio said, or they're not. And if they're not the best, well, they should be, because they're getting paid the big bucks. So what the fuck's going on? Are you saying they can't drive a Formula One car on anything but perfectly prepared tyres? Because that doesn't make sense, does it?
I don't know.
I mean, there are some arguments here both ways. Granted, Lucky, like like with the DRS, right? The closing speeds are very different now with DRS, and so the driver in front has got to be aware that the car is closing at a much faster speed than potentially the car in front can go, and that has to be taken into account. And it's taken a number of years in order to get the drivers used to doing that and to give room. Remember, before the DRS came in, there was a lot more swerving. Max Verstappen being one of the main culprits, right? And people used to swerve and to block a lot more. Then they really had to, hammer down on that and stop it happening, because the closing speeds were so bad. And we're going to go back to that exact problem again now with cold tyres. So this is the issue about not having tyre warmers, is that we're making the closing speeds very different again on overtaking. And I think, again, we've got the rules in place. There's no reason why they can't deal with it. But for some reason, they're not taking into account their own car performances at the same time. So there you go. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's all right. I'm struggling to think of things to say, to be honest, because apart from Perez making his way up through the field, it was a pretty dull kind of race.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was spoilt by the first red flag, as Fabio said. I think we were looking for some good tactics from Sainz and Russell that would have made it very interesting and more difficult for even Verstappen, but certainly for Alonso and Hamilton. There would have been some really close dicing, and it would have been an exciting race.
Yeah, I mean, Sainz was racing a very good race, considering the material that he had. So, I mean, up to that point, it was really exciting. That's why I said, they should not have raced that race. They should have, take all the people in the pit lane before starting the race. Okay, you pick a card, whoever takes the card.
It was like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
it was like that. I mean, again, it's consistency that we're lacking, of course, and in past days, these situations were so clear. That's what's confusing me, right? Is now we're saying it's almost like they're saying, look, we're just going to have to go. We want more of a show, and red flags are how we're going to get a show. No, that's not how we get a show. That's how you ruin a race. Because all of the tactics get fucking thrown out the window.
No, you're totally right. There was a journalist in Italy who said, it seems to be they're trying to set up a better show rather than a race, which is good. Don't get me wrong, it's good. The thing is that you must not forget the sport part and, the history that F1 has. So if you can make a better show, it's fine. But you always have to remember that there is a sport part. And those two things last Sunday were a little bit, they were not really balanced really well. Let's put it this way.
Yeah. Agreed.
While we're on the subject of Carlos Sainz, he was absolutely distraught with that 5-second penalty. You listen to the team radio when they're discussing it, when he's told he's got the penalty, he was nearly in tears. You could hear his voice starting to break.
Yeah.
And was desperately trying to get Ferrari to go back to the steward and at least let him have a say before they imposed any kind of penalty.
I mean, I don't agree with that. I mean, I don't agree with the saying in that. So Sainz was at fault, period. There is no if and buts about that. And I mean, I don't think that having him, talk about the situation would have made it better. So that is the thing. The thing is that 5 seconds in that situation, it is. You might as well tell the guy, okay, you're gonna get lost, and again, that the thing was
is that commensurate. Look, we've had the president. I didn't quite get it out before. So the president was from, I think it was like Austria, even like maybe 5 years ago. Somebody made a mistake near the end of the race. It was clearly their fault. They were given a 2-place grid penalty for the next race.
Yeah.
Bang. There you go.
I agree with you.
Problem sorted. Sorted. Everybody else has been fucked around in that particular restart. It was a complete mess. It's just a beggar's belief that they had to make the decision there and then.
But I agree with you, and I blame that on...
He wasn't even on the podium.
Listen, this is the long way of Abu Dhabi 2 years ago.
Yeah.
When
agreed.
Somebody, namely Masi, tried to interpret the rules in order not to ruin the show, right? It might have ruined the result. I mean, I might even get to you with that, right? But he tried not to ruin the show. He tried to have, he didn't stop the race. He made some questionable choices. But he interpreted the rules. And I think that was the rationale behind, Masi's decision. So following that long wave, now nobody takes any fucking decision. They apply a book which, in the first 3 lines, it says, okay, this is a rule book, but this is the sport. You got to act accordingly, right? Now nobody takes any decision whatsoever. And they think that by hiding behind, a book or precedents or stuff like that, they're safe, and they're not.
Yeah.
Because it only shows that they have no idea what they're dealing with, the kind of sport they're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really bonkers.
I was very disappointed, in both red flags, to be honest. I thought both red flags were not necessarily needless, but in terms of there was no show to be had after the second one, and the first red flag destroyed the show. Again, one of the things, like, why do we use 2 different types of tire in a race? The show. That's why, because it gives us extra tactical chances.
Don't get me started on the kind of shit, right?
Yeah, because, I don't want to get tires.
I know. I understand. Make any sense whatsoever. Because you make that kind of rule because you want the show. I get it, and then you have a stupid rule which I think has been going on for 10 years now, where you cannot change the setup from qualifying to race. That is mental. It is something which it screams wrong in every way. I mean, I'm not talking. I mean, I understand that when the turbo engines were in, that was a little bit too much, right? Because they had BMW, namely, even Ferrari and Renault. I mean, everybody. They had an engine for the qualifying, which only lasted like 6 or 7 laps, which they had an insane amount of power, something like 1,500 horsepower, that kind of shit. And then they changed the engine for the race. That was a little bit too much, and I get it, but you cannot change the height of the car or that kind of shit between qualifying and racing. Really? I mean, why? There is no reason. There is no rationale behind it.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, there is some rationale, right? In that, it becomes less. It throws the spanner in the works because you can now you have to compromise your car setup, right? And so that adds to more racing. But again, we're going back to a time when the cars were set up perfectly We had endless amounts of testing, or endless amounts of practice time, for hour and a half sessions each.
Yeah.
And we're not in that situation anymore. They refuse to change the
Right.
rules when the situation changes, and they don't have any common sense with it, right? Because again, the conditions change overnight, right? The weather conditions change overnight.
Right.
These cars are extremely sensitive. I don't get it as well, because you're ruining the race. You're not making it better.
And I understand you. I mean, okay, let's say there is a rationale, but it's a shitty rationale because I mean, you can go in any circuit right now, okay, tomorrow or next weekend, and watch any club race, and everybody, everybody, I'm not talking about national level. I'm talking about even a county level.
Club level, club level, even.
I mean, you fiddle. At least you fiddle with your suspensions, and rightly so. I mean, this is why they're done. That's the reason why they're done. So yeah, it's mental. I don't understand that. I really don't get it.
Yeah. We had this obsession with trying to promote overtaking, and it's got to the point now where we've promoted it so much, the teams have got round the problems of promoting that overtaking, the rules that have come in, and now we're back at square one again, where everybody knows how to get round it, so everybody gets round it, and there's no overtaking.
And the funny thing is that a lot of the problems that we had last year, with the porpoising and all that shit, they would be solved if you allow the teams to change the setup between qualifying and race, because you can and now, but no, that doesn't happen. So you got to make up, like technical directive 39, where you got to measure the flex of the bottom of the plank, which now, by the way, seems to be that suspended the rule. Apparently that rule was
too much
supposed
to do.
Save the F1 as a whole, right? And now they said, you know what? Yeah, let's take it back a little bit. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with
It's too complicated to do it. That's the problem.
It's mental.
It takes up too much time. And so they can't police it, right? They need to, but they can't.
They can't,
And this is why we have, like, Max Verstappen, who managed to take 2 seconds out of Lewis Hamilton in one sector, just because he decided to open up his car and put it through its paces. I mean, it's crazy.
It's great.
Sorry, Lucky. Anything else you want to finish with before we move on to the next part?
What else were we going to talk about? Yeah, the Constructors' Championship at the moment.
Well, we can anything about the race in particular. I just want to get through your last section. We're going real slow at the moment.
Screw the race, because it was screw the race. It was terrible. Let's move on.
Okay. Fabio has a wee confession, don't you, about the race?
What about?
Sleepy.
Oh yeah, I mean, so I had the brilliant idea to go for dinner with some friends of mine on Saturday evening, and went to a really good place, and I ate like a cow. So I probably fell asleep 3 times during the race. But funnily enough, I managed to get all the highlights. Because
just woke up and something's happened.
I mean, somebody was in the wall and there was a red flag. I said, what the fuck is going on? And it took so much time that the commentators basically made a recap of everything that I lost. I said, okay, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. Okay, we got a few questions from Gio here, which we'll just go. He says he likes the team aspect. Yeah, absolutely. That is one of the great things about Formula One. The conflict between the driver preference, what they individually are fighting each other. At the same time, the teams are fighting each other. And Formula One is very much about a development race for the teams throughout the year. It's not just the drivers. It's big money. So first questions are weather specific tires. Are there weather specific tires? And there are slicks, of which they bring 3 different types to each race of a possible 5. There are intermediate tires, and there are rain tires, which nobody ever fucking uses because they're useless. although allegedly they've changed them this year. So we shall see when we get into heavy rain. And one of the things that makes Formula One amazing is the fact that they do race. Not anymore so much. So, but they race in any weather condition.
Yeah,
not true anymore.
Yeah.
But now it's just when it's a slightly spitting. And then
don't race in any condition apart from mildly moist.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not true. I mean, they race in rain. I mean,
allegedly, yeah.
Well, not through a fucking tornado, but they race.
Well, we've yet to see it this year, have we? So, and last year,
just because it didn't rain.
Last year they wouldn't even use those tires, right? So if it was too wet and not too wet for intermediates, then they just wouldn't even bother putting the wet weather tires on. So that was Pirelli's problem. But,
there is a problem. I mean, funnily enough, the biggest problem is that the rain tires are too good. And that's one of the reasons they don't race with really heavy rain. And by mean it's too good, that I can't remember how many liters per second those tires can get, but I think they can empty a swimming pool in 20 seconds or stuff like that. So they pull up so much water that if you're behind, it's like driving through a constant, waterfall. So that is, the reason is that they're too efficient. And I think that, I don't know if it's from this year, but I think that there was something they talked about last year. There might be a new rule where they got to install some shit behind the rear tires just to avoid that massive wall of water.
That was one of the suggestions. It turns out that Pirelli just change the design of the tires.
Yeah,
and they're trying to make them more grippy now.
So they race in rain, but funnily enough, it's dangerous because they're too efficient.
Yeah, could you just read Geo Sam's message there, please?
Moist.
Fabio? Thank you. One more time. Thank you. Okay, that's over.
Moist.
Yeah, they still race in the rain. They do. We haven't had any rain this year, but they do race in the rain. Okay, thank you very much, Gio. Thank you so much for that. Just to hear him say that again.
There was some rain in the qualifying, wasn't it, or was it practice?
Moist.
There wasn't in. There was the threats of rain in qualifying, but it didn't actually rain. No.
All right.
So there we go. But anyway, that's great. Okay, so I have some exclusive footage, by the way, guys. So hang on to your hats. You know what happens when I have exclusive footage?
Yeah, I'm scared already. Carry on.
Okay, that's good. So before the race, Sky Sports do a let's meet the drivers. Yeah, and this time it was Bottas's turn, and here we go. This is the little warm up. You can see the presenter in the background there. This is the little warm up that Valtteri Bottas did. He went and played darts. But I actually managed to get some footage of the game that he had. So I don't know if you guys would like to see that or not.
Yeah, carry on.
Okay, great. So there he is playing darts, and he changed his outfit obviously for the thing. So let me just go back to that. There we go. And here we go. So this is Valtteri Bottas playing darts.
Game on.
Double vodka.
So it's not ready to go first. It's a good start. Double vodka. Single pint. Another double vodka.
100 milligram.
100 milligrams.
There we go. That was
I think I know who was Valtteri Bottas' darts teacher.
Oh, really? Who was that?
I think it might have been Kimi Räikkönen.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I think it might have been it.
I see he's put on a bit of weight as well, but there we go.
Either him or Daniel Ricciardo, the two of them. I don't know.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's great. That was the Australian Grand Prix. Is there anything else you guys would like to say?
I'm super
Well,
good.
it's doing Grand Prix. Well,
I
I'm
beg your
glad it's
pardon?
over. I'm glad it's over. That's
Well,
all
you
say
say
about
you
the race.
Fuck.
you say you're glad it's over, but you're not going to like the next track because we're going to
Oh.
Azerbaijan and Baku, and
Oh,
we know what fun we've had there in the past.
Wow. Yeah.
So one
Pile
thing I
up.
will say just quickly is a little theory of mine that popped into my head, right? Because like strange things pop into my head,
Yeah.
as you know, and I'm not talking about my OnlyFans page. I'm talking about Max Verstappen's amazing DRS performance. How about this, guys? How about this for a theory?
There you go.
Wacky as it may be.
Yeah.
They have an inverted drag wing, right? They have literally turned the bottom of the DRS wing, when it gets opened, into an airplane wing to provide lift, to move the bottom of the car further from the track, and therefore reduce the drag of the downforce created by the floor.
That is not right.
Well, do you know something else that would happen in that circumstance? Is it would stall the B wing as well.
I'm not really sure about that, but
yeah, well, I'm just saying.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Look out for it. That's my prediction here on April the 3rd, 2023. Simus's wacky ideas.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
But I mean, surely, as soon as you're opening DRS, you're taking the weight of the air off the back anyway, so you don't need to make it a special shape.
Well, the idea is that it provides lift. So it drags the suspension up and it drags the floor away from the ground.
Okay.
Right. So that then reduces the downforce produced by the floor. And then also stores the diffuser and the B-wing.
Right. So you're thinking it completely destroys the well, not completely destroys, but changes the flow of air under the car. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. It literally stalls the B-wing, which is the wing just underneath the main rear wing. So it stalls that, which is obviously at 300 miles an hour. That's quite an effective wing. And then also, in a secondary way, also stalls the floor a little bit as well and produces less downforce from the floor. And that obviously helps the speed.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, listen, I'm not saying it's not possible. I've got some books I got to reread about that kind of thing. I mean, there's something. There's something I'm not super convinced about it. I can't put my finger right now. So
I was asleep when I thought of it. Okay, so just to say,
fair enough.
I haven't looked into it engineering wise. I'm not an aerodynamicist, and basically I'm bullshitting. But apart from all of that, I think it's quite reasonable. Quite reasonable.
I got to look into it. Yeah, I'm agnostic right now about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, though. Interesting idea. That's all I'm putting forward. Interesting idea.
Okay.
And there we go. So, that's that. Anything else you guys would like to say about either Baku or Baku being Azerbaijan, where we're going next in April the 28th? So that's 3 weeks' time.
So, no, I can't say anything about Baku, which will get me in trouble with the Azerbaijan government and the FAA.
Okay. Lucky?
Yeah, I was going to quickly mention the Constructors' Championship at the moment.
Oh, yes. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Red Bull miles ahead in first place. And the surprise chaser, but with just about half as many points, is Aston Martin, followed by Mercedes. Who would have thought that would have been the case at the start of this year? Aston Martin, second in the Constructors' Championship.
Well, I did predict Alonso for the championship win, so just to point that out.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, it's fairly surprising, and it's a nice, pleasant surprise that there's another car up there that can then push things along.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's Red Bull are obviously dominant at the moment. I mean, there's no doubt in that.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to a decent race when we can get Ferrari, Aston, and Mercedes racing each other without these interruptions of the red light of the red flags and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm hoping for. It's a mild hope this year, but I think when we have that finally happening, I think we're going to get a great race. So yeah, and I think Baku is a good chance to do that, mainly because Aston is going to be slowed down a little because of the long straights, and Ferrari should speed up a little because of the long straights. So I think it's going to bring those three teams together. Obviously, the Red Bulls are going to fuck off into the distance as always, but nonetheless, there you go. Okay. Anything you want to say, Fabio, on that?
No, I'm fine. I mean, I just want to say I'm not super surprised about Aston Martin, and I'm actually really glad, mostly because of the fact of the technical director, the head engineer in Aston Martin, which is ex-Alpha. It's a really nice guy. So I mean, this guy has got some good ideas. So yeah, it's surprising that they managed to get there so fast, but I'm not surprised if you look at the names. So
no, absolutely, I'm not surprised because every time I've seen Mike Crack, I've always had a good feeling. Mike Crack always gives me a good feeling.
I was actually meaning Luca Furbato, but yeah, Mike Crack is it's a core part, it's just in the middle, and it's just at the core,
It really defines the divide within that team.
The supreme divider.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we could say, I mean, if anyone's going to really earn the ring, then it's going to be Mike Crack. But anyway, look. How many puns? I will actually get the. I have somewhere, but I can't find it at the moment. I do have a special screen for that section that we never really got together, but we're going to introduce it because Alonso is doing really well. So next week, Gio, especially, and anybody else there, look out for our special new section coming, which is of course Mike Crack Says. So we will have that as a new section, and I'll have a quote every race from the great Crack himself.
Right,
and he certainly is up for it. Okay, thank you very much, guys.
Are we not doing the trivia stroke myth section this week?
Yes, of course we are. I'm sorry. Yeah, we have another section. Let's do it. Let's fall in love with trivia one more time. Lucky, please, could you give us... We're going to go through this, obviously, pretty quickly. But nonetheless, please, go ahead.
Okay, well, how difficult do you want the question to be? Do you want it easy, middle?
I think
hard?
Middle would be good.
Okay. Last year was actually the 25th anniversary, believe it or not, of Jacques Villeneuve taking the championship in 1997. And as you'll remember, it went down to the last race at Jerez, Portugal, European Grand Prix. And it was between Villeneuve and Schumacher.
And Hitler. Oh, yeah, Schumacher. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, Hitler wasn't there that week. Okay. Now, before the race, which was eventful for other things, there was something happened in qualifying.
Oh, yes, it did. Yes.
That never happened before.
Never. Or since.
Yes, indeed, since. What was that thing?
Yeah, I know what it is.
I think I know. I'm not really sure, but I think they got the same.
Yeah, go on. No, yeah, go ahead.
What?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Can I go? Can I try?
Yeah. Let me finish after you, straight after you, though. Go ahead.
They got the same. Are you going to finish?
Oh, qualifying time.
Yeah.
And it was Villeneuve, Schumacher, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
That's it, exactly. You got it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
121.072. They all posted the same time. Villeneuve got pole because he did first. Schumacher was placed second because he did it second, and Frentzen at the end. He got third place.
Frentzen then driving for Williams, I believe.
Yeah, he was Villeneuve's teammate.
Was it a Williams or wasn't it Jordan or Williams? Was it Williams?
No, it was a Williams, yeah.
Okay.
Williams,
He was
two Williams,
for Williams, yeah.
Two Williams said the same thing. Now,
Yeah,
of course,
and when we say exact time, we're talking down to the thousandths of a second. We're not.
that's right. Yeah,
We're not just talking roughly the same time. To the thousandths of a second, 3 cars went round Jerez.
Yeah.
I think it was Jerez in exactly the same time to the thousandths of a second. Never happened before in Formula One. Never happen again in Formula One, if you ask me.
there were a couple of occasions, I believe, in the 60s that the pole position time was matched by the guy in second place, but that's as far as it went, and that wasn't down to thousandths of a second. I think they were only at hundredths in those days.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very unusual occurrence. But moving on to the myth. Okay. Now, there are some people who think that Michael Schumacher wasn't a cheating bastard. Now, this, of course, is a myth. He was a cheating bastard. There you go. That's today's myth.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lucky. I really appreciate that. Let me just put this back up as well. Okay. Thank you so much for that section. That was an interesting question. I had forgotten about that. The amazing things that happen in Formula One. Go ahead.
What I was most surprised about is it's now 25 years since Villeneuve won the title. Well, 26 this year. It doesn't seem that long ago.
Okay, and I've just been handed a picture of Fabio's first encounter with my crack. Can we see that? Is it?
Yeah.
Apparently, that was that. I remember that day well, Fabio.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. That was a good times. Good times.
Yeah. I see you decided to put the first one, not the second one, but yeah.
I didn't see the second one. What?
The second one is a little bit better, but you know.
Let me go back. Private chat. Oh, right, that wasn't there. This is slightly better. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's a little bit more appealing. Let me put it this way.
This was a situation that happened later on that day because I got to see Fabio's crack. So there we go. That's Fabio's crack. Right. Amazing. He's an amazing plumber. I will say that.
So that is how you recall it. The way I recall it is that the second one you were drunk. And then you woke up in the morning, and it was actually the first picture. But you know, this is how I recall it. But
yeah, no, I do. I mean, I knew it was you because of your dirty feet. You've always got dirty feet.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
That's it for us. I think we're done there. Thank you. No, that's Doubting Thomas's sister. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's Doubting Thomas. The first one I assume you're talking about. That's fine. Look, thank you. We'll see everybody again in 3 weeks' time for the next one, which of course is Baku. In the meantime, well done to Perez for driver of the day.
Jesus
amazingly. And well done for causing all of the ruckus behind him as he was overtaking. Are we not entertained, people? Are we not entertained? I think.
I hope they're leaving Michael Massey at home for the next race.
Yeah, hopefully.
He's a fucking Jonah. He's a Jonah, that guy.
Yeah, that's how that goes. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to play us out with. everybody, I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you to GeoSam. Thank you very much to GeoSam as well for the graphics, etc. Couldn't do this without you. And for being here. A wonderful show, hour and a half, just to show that we can still do it. Doesn't matter. There's enough to talk about. We'll do it. Thank you to Fabio. Thank you to Lucky7Wolfin, and thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to you.
There you go.